Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today something different. Today I am reviewing putting mats, and it's getting to that time of year. We're back indoor and it's a question of what are we going to do to pass the time and to improve our game over the winter months. And one thing that you can most certainly do is practice your putting. And there's all kinds of putting mats out there that are wanting you to go out, buy them and use them through the coming winter season. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to test them and tell you what I think is the best mat out there on the market. Total transparency, I've been asked to do this by Prime Putt, who have also provided the mats, but it's a totally honest assessment and review of these mats. They're not paying me any money to do it, but just so that you know, they have paid for the mats, and they've been all bought basically off Amazon and shipped out to me, with the exception of their own. So I've decided to review the mats in 3 different sections. I want to look first of all at the quality and the value for money of the mat. The second thing I want to look at is the durability and the ease of storage. And the final thing, the thing that's probably most important, is are they any good to putt on, and are you going to become a better putter by using these things through the winter season? So let's start with the first mat, the Odyssey, which is more kind of the normal kind of felt mat with a rubber backing, which I've actually felt is actually, strangely enough, seems to kind of rub in the direction that you're putting, so it's against the grain if there is a grain on it. Whereas the Birdie Ball mat is a really strange construction. Never seen anything like that before. It's more of a foam backing with almost like a fuzz on top of the foam. This is something that Birdie Ball have developed themselves and say this gives them the best kind of roll relative to a grass green. If that's a grass green, then it's an extremely well looked after grass green. Then you have the Perfect Practice mat, the mat that's been endorsed by Dustin Johnson. A very well-made mat in as much that it has a wooden surround, and you can see like a small channel which feeds the ball back to you. Just looking at it, it's like a harsh nylon mesh that they've made that out of, which will probably give it a pretty quick roll, but it still has a few waves on it, although it's been laying there for over a week. And because of the height they need in the end of the mat to actually allow the ball to drop into the workings and come back down into the tray at the beginning, which stops you having to go and pick the ball out of the hole. I'll be interested to see what that's like, because obviously that's going to take a lot of speed off the ball, and there's still a little bit of a wave in the mat where it hits the ramp and the ball's supposed to go up there, so we'll take a look at that. The Well Putt, the simplest mat, although it does have a lot of kind of markings on it. They basically put an area on it which they say kind of you should be putting as far as distance and speed is concerned, and a putt it part where you shouldn't be, so more or less if you're too short that's not good, and if you're a bit further or putting around about a foot after the hole, they recommend that is a good thing. And then you've got your Prime Putt, which is probably the most durable of the mats. It's a bit similar to the material that you've got on a normal hitting mat, but finer. All of these mats have got pretty kind of durable backings on them, with the exception of the Birdie Ball, which is more of a kind of a foam backing. The Birdie Ball being held down by the kind of weighted edges which they have integrated onto the mat, which you kind of slot on. Very easy to install. It'll be interesting to see how that looks though after a season of putting on it, because it seems, at least at this moment, to be the mat which is going to probably show wear and tear a little bit quicker than the others. So it's always difficult in these reviews. What do you do? Do you give them points out of 10? Do you give them points out of 5? Do you give them an A or a B or a C or whatever you do? So I'm going to basically stick with the basic kind of how many that they get out of 10. And it's really pretty obvious to me that by some of these mats, there's an awful lot gone into making them, and with others, maybe not quite so much. At the bottom of the rung, really, I would look at the well putt, which to me just seems like a piece of carpet with a rubber backing and some printing on it. Whether that's $150 worth, I don't know. You would have to decide, but I wouldn't pay it, and that's going to get a 6. The Odyssey mat is also something which has been on the market for years, this kind of felt mat. It rubs up, it doesn't really lay flat, and despite the rubber backing and also the foam, which actually gives it a slight rise at the end, which is most certainly not cheap to manufacture, I'm not totally impressed with it, and I think mats have come a long way since then, so that's also getting a 6. When I look at the perfect putt, there's an awful lot of work gone into that, and to think that that is costing about the same money as the well putt, then there's really no comparison in the quality of the product. It's a very durable putting mat. You have the whole wooden box and also this channel to feed the ball back to you. So there's an awful lot of work going in there, and the quality is really very good. So I'm going to give that an 8. When we come to the prime putt, this is really a pretty simple mat to look at, but it's not cheap to produce. I know normal hitting mats, you're looking at over €1,000 for them, and this is a better quality of material, finer, so that the ball does roll on it like on a putting green, and that costs money. Then you've got some nice finishes with the putting cup and also the backboard, so a 9 for that. At first look, the Birdie Ball looks like a cheap piece of foam when you pack it out and you think, oh goodness, what have I spent my money on? But for $150, with this kind of fuzz or grass substitute, which is on top of the foam, I think that must cost money to produce, and I do think it's value for money. Also, the way that they've worked the holes, the putting cups into the material, it's all very good. I'm a little bit dubious about how long it's going to stay looking that good, but certainly I think that you probably have value for money for that. That's also getting a 9 from me. So the next scores are for durability and storage. You need a mat that's going to be able to allow you to practice on it every day, so it's got to be durable, and you probably want to use it more than one season. At the same time, some of these mats are up to 12 foot long, 4 foot wide, and they're taking up a lot of space, so you're probably going to want to store them away when you're not using them. And there's only really 2 mats which do it for me, and the first one, strangely enough, is the well putt. Although as a putting mat, I'm not totally convinced by it. For storage and ease of access, it's brilliant. It rolls up into a perfect roll without any problems, and you can store it away in a very compact shape. And when you roll it back out again, it's perfectly flat straight away. You won't be standing on it because it's quite a thin mat, so it's something you can use all the time. And I would imagine it will last you many seasons. So that's why I give it a 9. The other mat, which is excellent, is the prime putt. The prime putt is made out of, as I said, a similar material as a hitting mat, and hitting mats will, are being bashed every day and will last 2 or 3 seasons. So a putting mat should last you forever. It's also easy to roll together, and with the exception of it being a little bit heavier than its counterparts, there's really nothing that can go wrong with it. Also, the putting cups, which are actually put into the holes, are also very durable, so there's really no reason why you shouldn't be using that for many years to come, and that's getting a 9 from me as well. The other 3 mats have their own idiosyncrasies. The main problem with the Odyssey mat is that it really doesn't roll flat and takes a long time to actually get the waves out of the mat once you've actually lain it down. And then because of the foam backing, when you try to roll it up, it's resisting. So again, you're going to need something to wrap around it, or the original box to stuff it into in order to keep it there. But obviously the tighter that you roll this mat, the more time you're going to need to actually roll it out straight again. It's also this kind of fuzzy material that we've seen for a long time, and it does tend to rub up. And if you're standing in the same position all the time, it's going to show wear in that position as well, so maybe not as durable as some of the other mats in the test, and that's why I'm giving it a 6. The Birdie Ball is the next one. When you take it out of the packaging, you're going to get worried about it straight away. This foam doesn't really like to be rolled up, and in order to get it back into storage, you're going to actually have to keep the original box, or get some kind of string or something to actually keep it together when you roll it up. But when you roll it back out, it does roll quite flat. The main problem for me is the durability of this mat. It really does show all the dirt and all the foot marks that you have it. And although at the moment these foot marks are disappearing, I am dubious about this. This is the only mat where I do have the caveat I will be using this mat because it does putt well. More to that in a moment. However, if I find that this is far more durable than it seems to be on opening, then obviously I will show you. But unfortunately, when I opened it, I dropped a putting mirror on it, and there was immediately a slit in the mat, and that unfortunately is the reason why it's only getting 6 points from me. The final mat is the Perfect Practice. Looks great. I would recommend it for any office if you just want to have a little bit of a game with your mates when there's nothing to do. The track which brings it back, brings the ball back to you, so you don't have to go and fetch it that long distance of 7 or 8 feet. Then that is definitely an advantage. But it's made of a very hard nylon rubber-backed material, which really is still showing the folds in it even after a couple of weeks, and it really does look like the ball's rolling over a roller coaster. The next problem is that you have to take this tracking apart, and the mat is actually glued to the wooden back, so you can only fold the mat, as you can see in the pictures. And that really makes it maybe a little bit more difficult to store. Obviously, it's not taking out massive amounts of room, but all of these things together, I would say that the mat is basically a 6 for me in the storage and durability ranks. How well the ball rolls on the mat is obviously for me the most important thing, and I'm quite surprised how nicely the prime putt does roll. It doesn't really seem to be knocked off course by the relative coarse fibres of the mat when I'm putting. And I think you can probably see on camera that there's no real kind of hobbles and bobbles that you might have expected from what appears at first sight, and certainly to the feel, as a rather coarse grass. Also, the cups are kind of built, what prime putt at least says in the literature, in a way so that if you miss the putt, you're going to miss it on the course as well, although there are these lips at the back, and I don't know if I quite believe them on that. I think a ball that kind of hits the cup might well act differently than hitting this kind of plastic lip at the side of the hole. On the other hand, what I was talking about before, the quality of roll here is really very good, at least when I'm putting it. Where I do see a difference is when I'm rolling the ball by hand. What I've noticed is if I just roll the ball up, I can see better when it's rolling very slowly. I don't know how well you can see it on camera. The ball seems to take little waves. The mat is definitely influencing the roll of the ball, even to the extent that if it stops, it will actually kind of move a little bit to the side. So there are some small undulations in the weave of the material, which makes it perform a little bit like a winter green, where some of the grass is just simply a little bit higher than the others. When you're putting at pace, and if the ball is hitting the cup at any kind of pace, then most certainly you're not going to notice this. However, if you're doing lag putting, where you're trying to get it to drop with the very last kind of roll of the dice, it might well be, I don't know, you should have seen it there, that the mat will influence the roll. Now that could be both a good thing and a bad thing, depending on your perspective. Maybe that is more like the real thing for us amateur golfers and hobby golfers out there. However, if you are used to putting on tournament greens, you wouldn't expect that to happen. The Odyssey mat probably gives you the usual kind of feeling from putt mats back in the day. A pretty simple kind of felt mat with a bit of foam underneath it. You can see the ball coming back, so that's really getting in the way every time. The roll is good, and there's certainly no problems with the build of the green having a massive influence over the direction that the ball is rolling. But you can also see there are still slight kind of undulations in the mat which are causing it, especially at the top there, to wander off course. And these are just folds which have been in the mat in packaging, and now having laid the mat out, and like I say, I've had the mat out for a couple of weeks now, they're still not gone. So the roll is pretty good, but I'm not really very happy with the way that the holes have been put in with this foam underneath, which doesn't seem to be giving any kind of true nature to you know, the way that the golf ball goes up to the hole and its likelihood of dropping. The Birdie Ball mat really does feel quite normal to stand on. I don't think quite right with the idea of the foam being exactly the same as a putting green. And because of the size of the mat, in order to stand on it, then you're not going to be able to be at exactly right angles to the hole either. But it certainly feels good underfoot. It's quicker than the other two greens as well. Definitely a feeling that the ball kind of comes off the putter and rolls extremely nicely towards the hole. So this kind of fuzzy thing they've got on it certainly does work as far as getting a true roll on the ball. But very quick, especially in comparison to the greens I've been putting on recently. I don't think I've had anything at this kind of pace. There's also, in comparison to the other two mats I've tested so far, not as much of a problem with the ball being irritated by the mat itself. However, I shall show you in a moment in the durability test, it marks very, very easily. And I can't see this lasting more than 2 minutes. The marks, every footstep there leaves a very noticeable imprint in the green, although it does disappear. And there are some very, very small waves in the green from packaging where the way it was rolled up, although that doesn't seem to be influencing the roll of the putt. I'll try and just roll the ball up a little slower so that we can see if it's really kind of taking any influence from the mat at all. No, it really doesn't seem to, does it? Super roll. So the perfect practice mat gives you a couple of holes. As I say, we're kind of putting over this kind of nylon with a rubber back mat, which again hasn't really lost all of the waves that came with packing, and I don't know if you can actually see when it's putting, it seems to be kind of running over these these waves. It's a very smooth roll on the other hand, but you do need a little bit of tonk on the ball to actually get it up the hill at the end. Of course, the advantage is that you don't have to go and get it. And what's also pretty interesting is that it has a smaller hole if you're finding the first one not enough of a challenge. I would tend to say that, again, as you saw there, it actually hit the edge of the construction, and that helped it to go in. But it was up and down all the way to the hole because of the waves in the mat, and of course it hits that ramp, which is quite a steep incline at the end of the putt, which really, doesn't fill me full of joy. Certainly a nice thing to have in your office, but I can't for a word of me imagine Mr. Johnson standing on a putting mat like this every night and improving his putting. Wouldn't be for me. So there are some little lines which help you align your putter here, and also, as I said before, you can place the ball over a spot and it will give you a feeling of whether you are you have your eye line over the ball. It's quite a slow mat in comparison to the last couple. I'm having to give it a bit of a bang to get it moving forward, and it certainly the feeling of the weave kind of resisting the roll of the ball rather than helping it. It has a thing called the bad zone just before the hole, which I suppose if you're too short, it's no good. So obviously they don't watch my channel, which kind of says you should be lagging most of the putts that you hit on a putting green. And they have the well zone, which is 1.5 foot. This is the hole height. It's back here, where they're wanting you to kind of hit it. Again, I don't know what it is on the stimp, but this is probably more like a winter green as well. Although the roll is pretty true, I don't have the feeling of the weave knocking the ball offline in any way. It's quite a slow putting green. If you're trying to work on keeping your eye over the ball or getting the face aligned square, the markings on the mat help you there. There are different zones on the putting mat that you can use. I don't really think this idea with bad zone and well put zone is of much use, especially to my students, but obviously there's people with different philosophies out there. It's designed just to be putted in one direction. Some mats you can get where you can kind of go with the weave and against the weave, a bit like putting into and with the grain. Might just because it's a new mat, but it seems pretty slow to me, probably the slowest of all the mats that we've tested today. So now for the most important category. How well do these putting mats putt? What is the most similar to green conditions, and which one is going to help your putting the most? Well, I'm going to make it exciting and start from the bottom and work my way to the top. In last place, unfortunately, is the Perfect Practice mat. Despite the endorsement from Dustin Johnson, not my favourite. The mat fabric is, for me, too stiff and doesn't actually lay flat on the floor, even after a couple of weeks out of the box. It's also, because of the design with this rather steep ramp at the end, not typical for a green, which means that you aren't using the right amount of power to actually get the ball to move over that distance. So distance control on this mat is a waste of time. You do have the benefits of it being very well made and also the ramp that brings the ball back to you, but that's not enough to save it. So in this category, it just gets 4 points. Right behind it comes the well putt. The well putt, for me, is just a piece of carpet with a rubber backing. The games that you can play on it may be good for someone, but I think you can probably do just as well at home on a short carpet rather than spending $150 on a mat. In third place comes the Odyssey. It's a tried and tested design of mat, but still has its problems, and that's obviously why we're testing them today. The felt will wear over time. It's also a mat that takes a long time to actually lay flat, and again, after over 2 weeks, it's still not flat. So that's one that I wouldn't recommend wholeheartedly, but it does putt quite nicely. So I'm giving it 6 points. And so we come to the big playoff, and in second place is the Prime Putt. Very nice putting mat where the ball really does roll well on it, but as I said, there are very slight undulations in the mat caused by its fibers, which doesn't give an absolutely true replication of a perfect putting surface. I know the majority of us aren't playing on perfect putting surfaces, and therefore maybe this is the mat you want to get in order to recreate that. It will be interesting to see also with this mat how it gets better over time, but I can't give it top points. I'm going with 8 points there. And top of the tree for me is the Birdie Ball. That is really a joy to putt on, almost too good. I can't remember putting on greens that good in a long time, and it could well be because of its design that it actually isn't as durable as maybe you would like it to be. But I will report back on that in the future if that is the case. But for me, the Birdie Ball wins it with 9 points. So in summation, which mat would I buy if I had the durability? It would be the Birdie Ball. Because I don't, it would be the Prime Putt. If you look at the scores on the doors, you don't have to be a mathematical genius to see that the Prime Putt has won with 26 points over the Birdie Ball with 24, but the main difference between them is the packing and durability score. If you use the original box that it came in and pack it together with maybe a little bit of string and that doesn't bother you, then I believe that the Birdie Ball is a better surface to putt on than the Prime Putt. But the Prime Putt is good, and I'm sure that with wear, the fibers of the Prime Putt will lay a little bit more evenly, and the roll on the ball should get better with wear. It might even be worth you actually kind of getting a brush out and helping this wear to start off with, because they are quite strong fibers that are used in the mat for obvious reasons, which is going to make it very durable. So I wouldn't have a problem really in recommending the Prime Putt. I will come back to you if I change my mind on the Birdie Ball, because I really do think they've made an excellent job of making a grass similar material where the ball really does run true. And it's the best putting mat that I've experienced just for putting. The other mats, I honestly can't recommend. Although the Well Putt gets 20 points, I wouldn't buy it. It's a piece of carpet with some printing on it for me. And quite honestly, I could do that on my own carpet at home. The Perfect Putt is more of an office toy, although it's been recommended by Dustin Johnson. I would not be convinced that he's putting on that every evening to improve his putting on tour. And the Odyssey, well, that kind of mat has been around for years. And this isn't even a very good example of such a putting mat. There are certainly other mats out there. You can get all of these on Amazon. I shall leave links below where you can do them, and the channel does actually profit from a very small margin that we get from Amazon were you to buy the mat directly from Amazon. Otherwise, thank you again for taking the time to watch it. If you liked the video and you'd like to have further videos like this, then please click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so far. There's always an opportunity to become a patron to the site. Thank you to all of the patrons. I shall also leave a link below for that. That was it for this week. I'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye.